Hi everybody, Dr. Samantha Luther, chiropractor here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and today's webinar is going to be about our immune system, asthma, and allergies. And so talking about our immune system is directly influenced by our nervous system. So that's why as a chiropractor, I am able to talk about this stuff and kind of bring light to you and to have you look at asthma and allergies in from a totally different viewpoint. I'm sure if your kiddo suffers with asthma and allergies, you have been to your pediatrician, general practitioner, there we go, all of those people, and they've probably only given you like a medication or an inhaler or something that you can take. But as a chiropractor, if our immune system is directly influenced by how our nervous system is functioning, as a chiropractor, that is what I deal with and that is what I support and have functioning the best in all of my clients is their nervous system. So I get to the root cause because our nervous system, our brain and our body are connected through our nervous system, and it controls every aspect, every function of our entire body. And that goes from how our immune system's responding, that goes to how our digestive system is digesting our food, our cardiovascular system is working, our respiratory system, all of those things are controlled. It's like our nervous system is like our brain and all that is like the master controller, and it tells everything what to do and how to respond. But if there's any kind of too much stress within one system, it's going to cause all of those to be stressed as well and not to function as it should. So with that being said, let's dive in, and like I say, let's look at this through a different kind of lens and through like a neurological nerdy side. But once again, as a chiropractor, I love to look at the root cause. I don't want to give anyone a band-aid. I don't want to be like, here, I hope this medication helps. Or here, you're gonna have to use this inhaler the rest of your life. No, let's get to the root cause so maybe we're actually able to get off of those and have our body flourishing and doing the absolute best that it can. Who wouldn't want that, right? So with asthma and allergies, you might be like wondering why, what's going on. It kind of all comes down to the ability of that nervous system to be able to adapt. And so like I say, then if the nervous system is, the immune system is. And if it's unable to adapt, that's where we get issues like asthma and allergies. And so these are a bunch of challenges that kiddos have been facing, and we're just going to be, diving into it right now. So going into asthma. Asthma is just, obviously the kiddo is unable to, get the breath that they need. Their breathing is obviously very constricted, very cut short, labored breathing, just very... they just can't get that good deep breath like they want to get. Some of the things with asthma, like talking from an external standpoint, is obviously I like to talk from the internal out, but from an external standpoint, there's a lot of chemicals that maybe might be irritating your kiddo's lungs or your lungs. And so really paying attention and honing into like the chemicals that you use within your house and how they might be like a lung irritant. It might be best to maybe find like a different, product to use, or maybe just using water and vinegar or something like that for cleaning, because these irritants can cause issues and be like very irritating to the lungs. One thing that I have a lot of parents ask me is like, well, okay, so we talk about the environmental factors and, I have 4 kids. Why does one have it and the other 3 don't? Why does one only have asthma and the other 3 don't? Like, I don't quite get it. Well, that all goes back to how stressed that little kiddo's nervous system is. And we're all probably thinking like, stress, like how stressed can my child be? They have, a life of luxury. But like this goes all the way back, even like whenever they were a baby, even in utero. How was that pregnancy with that baby? Was it different? Was there a lot of stressors going on during your life with that one? How was labor and delivery? Did they have to, use forceps, use intervention to help get that baby out? Was it super, super stressful labor and delivery? And then even most importantly, and there's research that ties this together, C-sections. Was that child delivered by C-section? Because there is so many things that a baby misses out on by being delivered via C-section. And I understand there are absolute emergencies for that. I'm not against it whatsoever. But this is what we're talking about, like with those stressors whenever they're very young and very little. We're talking about asthma developing maybe whenever they're 4, 5, or 6. We haven't correlated that stress of what that child went to back to their C-section or their labor and delivery that was super, super stressful. But even since then, since labor and delivery and when they were born, they've had their little stressors from the get-go because they're either delivered via C-section or they, you know, had that kind of a rough, you know, birthing process. And so that stress even all the way started back then, stressing the nervous system, and then it stressed the immune system, stressed the endocrine system. All of these just kept getting stressed. So by the time this kiddo is 4, 5, or 6, those issues with asthma, it's like, also on a side note, these kids might have suffered them from whenever they're littler, they might have had croup. They might have had, you know, like some sore throat, strep throat issues. They might have also even had ear infections, because whenever we have ear infections, that all has to drain somewhere. It's then going to drain down into the throat. That's going to affect the tonsils. It's then going to drain down the throat. It might go into the stomach, or it might go actually into the lungs. And that's where we're going to get some of these issues with the croup, and then that actually develops into asthma and issues even later on. So kind of be thinking back with your kiddo, like, what have they been through? What's been going on? Have you noticed then too, they might be one of those little kiddos that, you know, developing, they might have been just like a little, like a step behind, you know, physically developing, they might have been just like a little bit of a step behind. But going back to the importance of that C-section and how that is tied into asthma. So with our immune system, a lot of that just gets directly impacted by like how well our immunity, which is in our gut, sorry, I had a brain fart there. We want to build that immunity within our gut. And so like actually having a vaginal birth, a baby being delivered vaginally, they go through that canal, they actually pick up a lot of different bacteria and flora from mom that actually helps boost their immune system from the get-go, right out of the chute. So whenever a baby's delivered via C-section, they don't get to go through that process. Another issue with having a C-section is they don't get to go through that birth canal, which is a really tight space. And so in this office, we also talk about, and I see a ton of kiddos, ton of babies, we talk a lot about little kids and like plagiocephaly and cranial bone issue, like flattening of the head, torticollis and stuff like that. We work a lot with that. But what ends up happening is our cranial bones have the ability to like come together to get through that birth canal, and then the second that they're through, it kind of springs back open and comes back to where it needs to be. Same thing within that thorax, within that rib cage area. They actually come through that little hole, and then that rib cage actually gets squeezed a little bit, has the ability to squeeze really tight, and then it springs open again. And that almost, that springing of like the cranial bones and springing of the rib cage area actually like kickstarts that breathing process, kickstarts the lungs, helps them to kind of get like, hey, we are off to the races. And it's like, if they don't go through that, they're, you know, like I say, they're not going to get that kickstart that they need. And like I say, issues that come along without being, you know, delivered vaginally are going to be that plagiocephaly, there's going to be that torticollis, and there's going to be the cranial flattening, if your kiddos have dealt with that, or remember with your kiddo, like, yeah, they did have that. And then chest issues, like whenever kids that are delivered via C-section, they have such an increase then of getting croup, getting bronchitis, getting asthma, all of those things. Because from the get-go, and most people don't think about this that long ago, that, oh yeah, they were C-section, or that, you know, that it was a traumatic birth. It doesn't even have to be C-section. It can just be that traumatic birth where they might have been, you know, lodged in there for a while and they didn't get that spring action that I just talked about within the cranial bones and the thorax area. So there just becomes to be a huge susceptibility, I can't say that word tonight, within the lungs. And then the last thing, kind of like with talking about asthma and like why, like we're in such a germ frenzy, germ killing frenzy, especially here recently with the coronavirus, but we've kind of been that way for a while. You know, we're always carrying our Purell, antibacterial soap, kill off germs, kill off germs, kill off germs. Well, germs aren't necessarily our, let me go let my lovely dogs in one moment, please, because otherwise they will drive us crazy. Be right back. Okay, going back to those germs. And so we're in such a germ like killing, you know, frenzy, but germs are actually and can be our friends because they actually build our immunity big time. It's almost like with germs, like it's almost like your immune system is a bunch of like, you know, soldiers in there, and you are having to prepare and practice for war. Each time that you throw some germs down in there, it's building up those soldiers stronger and stronger and stronger. There's actually research studies, and I can give my mom a high five on this, my mom and dad. I grew up on a farm, and so they have said farm kids versus like kids that were raised in like a very sterile environment, and like mom was wiping down everything and cleaning everything, and you know, antibacterial this and pure all that and all this stuff. Farm kids have been shown to have such a stronger immune system and better immune response compared to kiddos that were born like in a very sterile, clean environment. So even though like you see your kid like putting dirt in their mouth or like licking something at the grocery store that is not yours, that's okay. I'm not encouraging it at all, especially with the coronavirus going around. I get it, but if we can think back pre-coronavirus, God, the amount of times that I thought whenever I came home and I didn't wash my hands to make dinner, now I'm like, okay, better clean up. So like we have this germ killing frenzy that's actually not doing our immune system any good, and which is super unfortunate right now. But hey, with that being said, build that immunity, let some of those germs happen, it's okay. But like I say, one reason, going back to why one kid and why not the other, these are some of the things that we go through and we think about. And you know, is there, you know, how is their system able to adapt? Is it adapting, or does it have an inability to adapt? And asthma can be scary. Like I say, if you're a parent that has experienced this and you have seen your kiddo have an asthma attack and you feel like you're completely helpless, that's a horrible feeling as a parent, because you want to do everything possible that you can for your kiddo, and when this happens, it is just super, super scary. But this is where now I want to bring you guys some light and bring you guys some hope, give you answers, give you why. This is why, because I feel like so many parents are just given whatever answers they're given, and they're still kind of left going, huh? My whole platform is providing answers, delivering hope, and getting you results. That is what my motto is. Okay, so what is happening? What is going on here? So we have something called our diaphragm, and our diaphragm is like our ever-encompassing breathing muscle. It actually separates our lungs, our thoracic cavity, from our abdominal cavity, and it's this cool like parachuting muscle that as we inhale, drops down, exhale, pushes that air back up. So it's a hugely vital part of our breathing mechanism there. But what happens with it, there gets to be a lot of constriction, a lot of tightening, and a lot of tension within these kiddos that suffer from asthma. And it becomes this huge, like restrictive, like I say, restrictive tightness tension, that then if that thing is super tight, think about like you have a super tight muscle. It doesn't want to relax. It doesn't want to do its thing. So it's always constantly caught in this tight and like a heightened, tighten mode. And so the second you add like increased, you know, exercise, and it's like you know, you're needing that diaphragm to actually do more. Well, if it's tight and spasming, it doesn't want to do, it's going to do this. Before, when it did a nice breathing mechanism like that. With asthma, it's shorter, restricted. You aren't able to get that huge deep breath in, because that diaphragm drops down as we breathe in and comes up as we exhale out. So if there's, like I say, a lot of restriction, a lot of tightness and spasming there, that's not going to happen. There's also part of our spine and part of our nervous system in our lower cervical spine that actually helps influence the other parts of our breathing. And so whenever it is stressed, whenever it is text, and we all think about how many of us have like that lower neck pain, and especially kids these days that are constantly looking forward, that's going to cause a lot of strain within there. But the major reason is we have a sympathetic plexus, so like, which is just kind of like a cluster of nerves, and yeah, just a cluster of nerves in there, that the sympathetic nervous system is our fight or flight response. Fight or flight, bam, threat, gotta get out. What do we do whenever we are, you know, hyper stressed, hyper tense, hyper, you know, anxious? Our breathing becomes short. It's not, it's this, it's not that. So whenever we have issues in that lower cervical spine, and a subluxation, that's the big fancy word us chiropractors use, is present there, it's going to be kicking on that sympathetic plexus. It's going to be kicking on that spastic breathing, that fight or flight response that we do not want to kick on. So we need to go in there and pay attention to that and help bring that back down. So like I say, with asthma, that's kind of like the nuts and bolts and like the neurology of it, of like the root cause. So if we take care of that subluxation, or we take care of that stress, those stress parts within that spine, within that nervous system, it's going to alleviate all of that stress that's built up within there and allow that body to function as it should. And how we find those with those kiddos is we have awesome neurological scanning here in the office that, you know, it finds the hot spots, it finds the super stress spots within that person's nervous system, and we're able to address it from right there and then with our awesome adjustments that we do. And speaking of adjustments, that's one of the, oh man, whenever you get a kiddo that has asthma, and they're laying there and you give them that adjustment, they almost stand up and you see them go and they hold it because it feels so good, because they're able to stretch out that thoracic cavity. They're able to stretch out that diaphragm and allow that expansion of those lungs. It is so cool to see. And like each time that we work with that kiddo, we're gonna get the nerve supply to that diaphragm, that nerve supply to that sympathetic plexus there in the cervical spine. We're gonna allow it to do what it needs to do, and therefore that kiddo is just gonna be feeling so much better. And because with asthma, it's pretty much just the spasming of all of the breathing apparatuses, and we need that to calm back down. A cool research study that's out there states that 45% of kiddos that have seen a decrease in their asthma attacks with chiropractic care. 45%. That's pretty cool. And another 31% actually voluntarily went off of their medications, like whether that be medication that they were on for asthma or otherwise their inhaler. So once again, it comes back down to like getting that sympathetic nervous system kicked back down and allowing that, you know, the lungs and all of that just to expand and get that good breath in for that kiddo and bring the spasming out of that diaphragm. Super cool, super exciting as well. One thing I want to make notice on, or make mention on asthma, is kiddos that suffer with it, watch them during growth spurts. Because growth spurts are great, they're wonderful, but it's also an added stress upon the body. We want to keep, I mean, you can't fight a growth spurt, you can't do it, but like the body's going through so many changes, and that's when that nervous system once again is going to want to get stressed a little bit more. So we need to be looking to those spots of that kiddo's nervous system to be stressed, and that might cause that asthma to kind of rear its ugly head and flare back up again. So just be aware of that with your kiddos in growth spurts. Talking about allergies now, let's transition into allergies. So allergies are one of those, your body is inappropriately perceiving them as a threat for whatever reason. You're gonna get the itchy eyes, you know, with the seasonal allergies, you're gonna get those itchy eyes, watery nose, watery eyes, sometimes the anaphylactic response, which isn't good either. That is absolutely terrifying. But like I say, you can have the seasonal allergies versus like the ones that, like the ingestible ones, like you have the peanut allergies and the gluten allergies and stuff like that. With those ones with the ingestibles, you're gonna see a lot of like stomach cramping, diarrhea. You'll even get like a rash sometimes on the kiddo as well. So just kind of a little bit of the differences there. What is it again? Why one kid, why you and not others whenever you were raised in the same exact families, eating the same exact things? It goes all the way back again to, you know, what stresses has this kid had in their life, you know, leading up to this. And like, you know, once again, their body's just perceiving this allergy as a threat. Whenever I think about a threat, I think about, you know, like something attacking me or coming up on like a car accident. I might be getting into a car accident. Like that's a threat to me. Or, you know, having, you know, we've all had those threats that just kind of come at us. But like each time our body perceives that as a threat. So each time your kiddo comes across that allergen, it's perceiving that as a threat. And like each threat, it's eventually going to cause that nervous system just to go like overexcited, overtaxed, drained and kicked, and it's gonna be like, fine, I can't deal with this anymore, here's your allergic reaction, you know. So that's what's going to be going on there. We need to get that, once again, there's an imbalance within that adaptability. Once again, major imbalance there with allergies. The nervous system, we want it to be calmed, rested, relaxed, And like I say, that nervous system once again controls everything. So if it is calmed, relaxed, and healing, it doesn't have time to perceive those as threats and to keep it coming at them and to deal with that stress response. Within our nervous system, what's really neat and how the nervous system and the immune system are tied together, 70% of our immune system is found within our gut. So that good, healthy bacteria, once again, as a kiddo being delivered vaginally and naturally versus a C-section, gives us that immediate like kick in like the gut flora, because we take on like that, the flora coming out of mama. Those are all goods. Like once again, kiddos that have allergies, they don't quite get that. They might have been delivered C-section or had that traumatic birth, which was like a birth that was way too fast and it didn't happen quite properly. All sorts of things can factor in. But then the other part, so 70% of our immune system is found within our gut. The other 30% of our immune system is part of our nervous system, actually. And we have two parts of that, which is the Th1 and the Th2. So I'm going to talk real quick, go back real quick. Whenever we talked about that sympathetic plexus, sorry, I'm going all over here. When we talked about that sympathetic plexus, our nervous system has two parts to it. We have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is our fight or flight response and stress response. So it's a vital part of our existence. We need it, because if we didn't have it and an actual threat came in and threatened us, we would need the mechanisms to get the heck out of Dodge, to get out of the threat, to get away from the threat. But then our nervous system has the other part, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, that brings us back down into that calm, relaxed, rest and digest phase. And that's what we're normally within. We're usually in that rest and digest, but so many times in this day and age, a lot of people are stuck in that fight or flight and that stress response. That's when we get all of these issues. That's when we get it. We just need that body's ability to adapt and come back into that rest and digest and heal phase. And that's as chiropractors where we come in immensely, because we are the ones that can influence that the most. So going back to, remember, sympathetic bad, parasympathetic good. Now we're going to be going back into the parts of the nervous system, which are also parts of the immune system, and the Th1, which we want to consider the sympathetic part. Those are what's going to give us the immune system responses. Symptoms, the externalization of these allergy responses. And then the other one's going to be the Th2, which is the good. That's going to be like the parasympathetic. And the Th2 is kind of like your grand thinkers or good calculators, or very, very smart. And so with our Th2 receptors, they're actually ones that can go into our body and they like put a flag on an allergen and say, hey, this guy caused us an issue before. We need to take care of him whenever he presents himself again. And so that's whenever it's like, whenever we think about that being, that's like a good calculated response. That's not like having the response of like an allergic reaction. That's saying, hey, this guy's been flagged. We need to pay attention to him. So the next time he gets within our system, we are going to go in there and say, hey, we're kicking you out. So the Th2 is that calming effect of the immune neurosystem. And so it's the calming, it's that parasympathetic side that does things. It's almost like those bouncers. This is horrible analogy, but like the bouncers at the bar that just nonchalantly go over to a rambunctious person and go, you can either leave now or I will make a scene. You know, so like most people go, okay, fine, we're gonna go ahead and leave. Our Th1 is the other guy. It's the one coming in and causing a huge scene, i.e. those allergic reactions, the itchy eyes, the watery eyes, the runny nose, the rashes, all of that stuff. So that's where I want you guys to think about that. And that's where kind of within the nervous system of that parasympathetic and sympathetic, we just need that good amount of balance, because we can't have both turned on. We need to have one going, one's either going to be going up. So if we're in a fight or flight response or a super stress response, sympathetic's going to be kicked on. If our body's nice and balanced and we're able to rest, digest, heal, relax, parasympathetic's going to be on. So it's always this constant teetering, kind of like one of those balances that you see. So that's kind of why, there's just that whole neurological component to your immune system. I hope this is, sinking into you, and I hope it's something that maybe you've never even heard of, and now you're going, oh, okay. So like, we just don't, you know, with the inhaler and asthma, we just don't want to be taking that and it just calms it down. Like, why aren't we taking care of that diaphragm and that sympathetic plexus and allowing that all to be calm and as it should be? With the allergies, how come, you know, maybe our kiddos with the allergies, their Th1 receptors are kicked on way too much because that's the neurological aspect of our immune system. We need these Th2 guys kicking in. I'd rather have the guy flagging everybody as they walk in and taking care of them and having an eye on them versus having a huge reaction like we've seen before within our kiddo or even within ourselves. So with that being said, like with the chiropractic aspect, that's where it's at. So you've heard me talking so much about stresses. Within our lives, everyday lives, we have chemical stressors, we have physical stressors, we have emotional stressors. You can imagine each of those. Chemical are going to be like the food that you get, the nutrition, even things that we put on our body, the shampoos, the lotions, and all that stuff that we use. That's going to elicit, you know, or put more chemicals into our body if you eat poorly and use a lot more things like that. Physical stressors. Oh man, if you have kids and they're in this range of like 2 to 5, and that's when allergies start, you know, allergies and asthma start kicking in, what are they doing? They're out there having fun. They're falling down, they're climbing trees, they're falling off of playground equipment. Those are all physical stressors. They're gonna happen. Like, I'd rather have them out there doing that versus sitting inside, but just know it still adds to their stress bucket that we're gonna be talking about soon. The last one's going to be emotional stressors. This is just a hard one with this day and age. It's just a totally different world. It's such more of a fast-paced world as well. So like these emotional stressors start to come in. We see a lot more kids with, you know, anxiety and depression and stuff like that. It's just because their nervous systems become so overwhelmed and so overtaxed. And that's where we want to get this balance back in again as a chiropractor. And as a chiropractor, we're able to help balance that for these kiddos. So if you think about taking all those stressors and you have a bucket and you're putting all these stressors in the bucket and it keeps going in, and let's say you have a hole in the bottom of that bucket, your ability to adapt is how much stress is coming in and how that bucket is trickling out the stressors. So like there's that constant balance. But eventually sometimes that hole on the bottom stays that same size and our bucket keeps coming in and almost starts then to overflow with those stressors. That's where chiropractic comes in, and we're able to help you adapt better to those stressors. We're able to then maybe make your bucket larger. So like you're fine with the amount of stress and taking on more. We just are able to make your bucket bigger. But if you're not one, we're able to then with chiropractic, you know, once again, adaptability and balance, we're able to make maybe the hole on the bottom that, you know, the stressors that are funneling out, help them to funnel out a little bit quicker. So you still might have a lot coming in, but you also have a lot going out. But you're not holding it all inside this bucket that there's some people, they have a bucket and they don't even have a hole in the bottom that's draining out. That's how much stress that I see in my office. And so we need to get that hole in there. We need to allow that to start, those stresses to start draining out, because stress is just going to happen. It's a part of everyday life. We can't get rid of it, but let's help your bucket either get bigger or the hole on the bottom and the one that's draining out the stresses get bigger as well. So you just have that nice balance, adaptability, and your nervous system isn't taking on so much stress and holding it in. Because the second your body holds on to stress, this is when all of these issues with our nervous system, with our immune system, with our endocrine system, all of those starts to go haywire and we get symptoms. Symptoms, actually, we start to have unadaptability and we start to have malfunction of our body far before symptoms ever start showing up. So whenever people are like, oh my gosh, like going to a chiropractor, we pick up on this stuff. Like I say, with our neurological scans, we're able to pick up on things before those symptoms might even start showing up. That's the beauty of it. We're all about prevention here and like getting your body to function at 100% and able to ward off these stressors so much better and adapt to these stressors so much better. Like I say, I hope that this brought you guys so much information in a different way of looking at these things. If you have any more questions, please, 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 please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And sorry about my dogs again. Anyway, Samantha Luther with SJL Wellness, 402-432-7702 or sjlwellness@gmail.com. Thanks guys, thanks for listening.